Welcome back to the 3x5 Live
podcast.
On this podcast, we talk mindset, mindfulness, wellness, productivity. We haven't hit on productivity in a while. We got to do that. You know that?
I agree. Put it on the list.
On the list. Anyway, so Jessie spoke a little bit about nature last week. All those glorious leaves and trees and
kids.
And this week, I'm going to try to articulate the thing called the coffee bean. And if any of you have heard Damon West's story about the coffee bean, it is life-changing in my opinion. It's just such an impactful story of his life, of his journey, and these lessons that he learned. And I'm going to try to do it a little justice, but I'll probably do a link to either his book in the show notes, or there's actually a podcast he did with Ed Mylett that was also fantastic, that really broke down his story. But basically, Damon grew up in Texas. All right, Jay? Do you know this story?
I mean, you shared a little pieces about it with me.
All right. So he grew up in Texas. He was an amazing athlete, amazing football player, privileged. Went to one of the big Texas football schools. Had a career-ending injury, I think his sophomore year. That then his passion, his identity was gone. It was taken from him. So it's almost like he wandered for years through college, then post-college. And he ended up becoming, maybe in his mid-20s, addicted to meth. And then he was part of this group of meth addicts that were doing all these burglaries. Nobody ever got hurt. Nobody was ever home during the burglaries. But it was just a string of all these break-in and entries, however you pronounce that. Did I say that right?
I don't know. Breaking and entering.
Yeah, breaking and entering. So anyway, so a SWAT team came in, arrested him, and he went to court, and they basically made an example out of him because he had everything he could ever imagine in life. He was overly privileged, and they gave him life in jail, and he was completely shocked. So his mom came up to him before he went to jail and said, "You're going to make some promises to me. You're going to make a promise that you're not going to come back from jail as some hardened criminal, and you're going to come back as the boy that we raised. You're going to promise me," I think she said something about faith, and then that you're not going to join any gangs when you go in there or get any tattoos. And for some reason that stuck, and he's just like, "All right, Mom, I'll do my best to do that." So they put him in a local county jail before he went to the legit jail cell, maximum security, where they send all the people that have a life sentence. And he was in there for 2 months. So he's going around to all the guys. He's like, "How do I survive? How do I survive?" And they all were telling him, "You got to join a gang. You got to join up, with all the white knights," or whatever they call the white supremacist type group. He's like, "Because if you don't, then you won't have any protection." So he's asking everybody that, and he's like, "But I can't because my mom, I promised her I wouldn't join a gang." So suddenly this guy, his name is Mr. Jackson, came up to him and was just like, "I'm going to give you a little advice." And he's just like, "If you want to be independent in there, you're going to have to go in there and fight for your independence. You're going to have to fight every group that attacks you until you gain their respect and gain their independence." And he's like, and also, he's like, "You got to change your environment." And this is the whole point of the story, what I'm about to get into here. So he's like, imagine jail as a pot of boiling water. That's your environment. So he's like, what happens when you put a carrot into a pot of boiling water? It starts out hard, and then it gets soft and weakened by the environment, the conditions that you're in. He's like, so when you're in jail, you don't want to be a carrot. He's like, how about an egg? An egg, it's hard on the outside, but it's soft on the center. He's like, if you're an egg and you go into jail, and jail hardens you, it hardens your heart. And then you come out and you can't be the man, you can't show love because you're hardened on the inside. So the environment being jail hardens you on the inside. He's like, well, what happens to a coffee bean, Damien? Damien's like, I don't know. What happens to a coffee bean? And he's like, the coffee bean, it changes the environment. When a coffee bean goes into that pot of boiling water, the power on the inside of that coffee bean changes the entire environment around it. So he's like, you got to go in there and you got to be a coffee bean. And that's such an impactful message that we all need to hear, that we can change our environment. Our environment, our pot of boiling water, life is tough. We're all faced with so many different situations. But if we can be that coffee bean know that inside of us, we have something that it takes to change the environment around us to whatever we want it to be. We have that power. And that's the story of Damon West. And that's what he wrote a book with the famous John Gordon, who wrote The Energy Bus and The Carpenter and all those books. It's a very short book. So if you have kids that are, I'd probably say 10, 12 years old, 14 years old, that book, it's almost like a graphic novel. And then it would be great for your kids to read, and then or read it with them. It's very short. And then Damon West actually has his book that goes through his entire story of his life, but it shares that coffee bean message. And he went and he spoke at Clemson, and Clemson has John Gordon's connected with Clemson, and he was such an impactful message to the entire team that they make coffee bean T-shirts and just to change that environment, and they won many national titles. So anything to add on that?
No, I was actually just going to ask some questions. I was thinking okay, but you just kind of answered it right there. How could this apply in a situation where, and so you said a sports team, right?
Right.
If you think about the sports team and the environment that you're creating, and then you really do have some input and insight into how to shift or move, but are you thinking about your environment? Give me an example of when you would think that this could apply to you.
Me personally?
Yeah.
I think it's my environment at work. I have a small office, but how am I showing up every day and the energy I'm bringing to that environment there? Also, doing some, I'm part of mastermind groups where maybe 20, 30 guys come together, and obviously that's not a hard environment, but you're in this weird networking, awkward space. And just we talked about the other day, the energy that you bring to that. In Damon's story, he talks about how he had a shift while he was in jail by one of the inmates. I forget what he used. It was hilarious. But basically, he was trying to be the coffee bean, but he had a negative attitude. Damon wasn't showing up as, he was very pessimistic about things instead of being really optimistic and positive and that shining example. And that shift along with the coffee bean is what really impacted when those two thoughts collided of your thoughts control your actions, and your thoughts also control your energy and how you're showing up.
Okay. So if you were looking at this from an analogy standpoint, would you almost need to because you don't want to change to fit into your environment is the message, right?
Yep.
A lot of times we change or shift or make ourselves smoother and shinier and get rid of our rough edges in order to appease or please the people who are around us or the environment that are around us. So the idea is maybe to figure out your optimal coffee bean, what type of coffee bean are you? Because I think that is necessary. That self-awareness piece is necessary before you try to shift an environment. But then staying true to that coffee bean and not allowing the pressure of your environment to shift or change you, but instead radiating the positivity or whatever
Right.
that character trait that you've been honing in outward so that it can shift in a positive direction.
Yes, exactly. And that's what he talks about, what he did in jail.
Because you could also think of a bad coffee bean. If you're a bad coffee bean, you're still going to leak into your environment, but what are you leaking out into your environment?
Some rancid coffee.
And are you creating some bitter, environment that's not thriving? And so I think knowing your inner coffee bean is a good place to start.
World's best cup of coffee.
World's greatest cup of coffee.
No, but he talks about that he actually got out. He had a life sentence, but he was only in for, I think, 7.5 years or something like that. But towards the end, everybody wanted to be around him because of that energy, that positivity, that smile, how he was showing up in such a toxic environment. People wanted whatever he had. So it goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago of energy as a currency, and people even in jail wanted that currency of being around him. So that's a message. I'll drop the podcast where he's interviewed, which is a fantastic listen. I highly suggest it. And then also his book in the show notes. So let's all be coffee beans,
but really good coffee beans.
What are you gonna say? Like Starbucks coffee beans?
No, I was gonna say like the ones that we got on our honeymoon in Hawaii.
Oh, those were some
the
good.
Kona coffee beans.
Kona's,
They were
and
so good.
Hawaii makes you smile.
It does.
Yeah,
and we got those little ceramic mugs, and we just sit and sip our coffee.
I like it. All right, Hawaiian coffee beans. All right, guys.
Have a good one.
Until next week.
See ya.
We are all